Welcome, everyone. I'm David Bodorf, AIC Executive Director. Welcome to another edition of Conversations with Policymakers. And with us today is Graig Lubsen. Graig is the Director of Digital Experience and External Affairs at the Indiana Office of Technology. He's attended many of our events over the past few years to discuss county websites and making sure that everyone's in compliance. So Graig, welcome and thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you guys.
We've been hearing a lot of discussion from the IT directors about a new mandate or maybe a new enforcement on a mandate on county websites to make sure that they're ADA compliant. Can you tell us a little bit about that mandate and what's changed in recent years?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is certainly something that's picked up in visibility recently when the Department of Justice announced that they would begin enforcing accessibility standards. However, what hasn't changed is this has been law since the mid-90s. What it is actually doing is providing some clarity on who is enforcing the actions and what's covered. And what that really means for counties and all layers of government is your digital materials from your website to your online forms to your social media feeds are all going to be held to accessibility standards that are very clearly defined. So it's actually providing a whole lot more guidance on what you need to do. But I think it's important to note this is sort of the right approach. 13% of Indiana population has a disability. So what we're making sure is we're providing services for all Hoosiers. So it's the right thing to do, but yeah, you're also complying with the law because we want to make sure that anybody can interact with government in the ways they need to. And certainly the move to digital is something that's transformed, especially since COVID.
So on the new enforcement mechanisms, my understanding is there's somewhat of a phase-in process. So by the end of April, I think some of the larger counties have to be in compliance. Can you give us a little bit of information about that?
Yeah, this year, by the end of April, anybody with a population larger than 50,000 needs to be compliant with what is called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is WCAG 2.1 AA. And that's really very clearly defined. There's a whole lot of information about that if you search for that or go to ada.gov. Now, if you are a population under 50,000, your compliance deadline is April of 2027. And there's some caveats to this. For example, if you are a county library branch and you might only serve 3,000 people, if you're in a county with a population greater than 50,000, you are still compliant this year, 2026. So you do have to think through that if you're a subpopulation. And while this doesn't affect counties, like a state college with a fewer than 50,000 enrollees and employees, they are in a state of 7 million people. They are compliant this year.
Okay, that's great information. Thanks. And so I know that the Indiana Office of Technology assists counties in their websites. So will they automatically become compliant, or what is the state doing for their own websites, and then to help with the counties where they help manage the county's websites?
Yeah, accessibility has been a priority for us long before this was on the radar with the Department of Justice. We've made it a point of emphasis to help our agencies and our customers that are local government be prepared for accessibility. Again, for us, it's a service issue. We want to make sure people can get to the services they need, however it is they need to do that. So we do provide tools for our counties that use the IN.gov websites that we provide and host. A tool called Site Improve, which looks for accessibility in your content as well as your function. All of the sites we provide for local governments, which we're more than 300 at this point. And again, we do offer free websites to local governments. There is an upgrade for paid option, but only about a dozen entities are using that paid option. So the free version is very applicable to really a county of any size. And we offer the tools to make sure your content is accessible. We look for broken links, we look for misspellings. The biggest thing you need to be aware of is what is on your site, what is uploaded. PDFs are the #1 violator of accessibility. because it's really easy to scan a document, meeting minutes or something, and upload that as a PDF. That is not going to be accessible at all. And so there are sort of uh, archived versions of content that do not need to be updated to meet accessibility. So if it is literally, we'll go back to the meeting minutes of a meeting that happened before 2026 or 2027, you do not need to go back and update that.
Well, that's good.
If it is a policy, though, or a law, then you need to go fix that. If it's an active item that you are still referencing, it needs to be updated to be accessible. If it's something that's just there for reference, that is purely there for archive, but not an active item, it doesn't have to go be fixed.
One of the things the IT directors pointed out was like if you have photographs on your website, you might have to have an audio description of the picture. Is that correct?
You need to provide what's called alt text with that, which is just a description of what is in the photograph. And again, ada.gov has a lot of really good resources on what it is you should be putting in these texts. And what that allows is for people with screen readers, if you're visually impaired, you can tab through your site and it'll read the text for them. And so, yeah, there's an image there. One of the things you want to avoid is having text within an image. That's going to make it inaccessible entirely. So we're not talking logos, but if you've got a picture of us
Right.
and you put text over David Bodorf, Graig Lubsen here, that's going to make it inaccessible unless you're putting in some alt text.
Okay, that's good to know. And the penalty for noncompliance, if somebody files a lawsuit, I'm assuming it's a financial penalty.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is a lawsuit can be filed today. We're recording this in early March. It can be filed today. The date of April doesn't mean anything. What this is really changing is who is enforcing that requirement. In 2023, there was more than 4,000 lawsuits filed against government entities about accessibility. And we sort of have an expectation that just given the increase in visibility of this issue, just because of the upcoming deadlines, that more people will be filing lawsuits would be my expectation. So one, get ahead of it. Start cataloging what you have on digital materials. So your website, your social media feeds. Again, you don't have to go backwards on social media. What is moving forward, you have to make sure that's accessible. You have to think about your online forms and other items. One of the things that ADA advises is you cannot contract away your accessibility responsibilities. You can't just say, we're having a third party post on our site, so therefore it doesn't have to be accessible. If they are posting on behalf of a government body, it still needs to be covered by accessibility rules.
Okay, so if a county has a contract now for somebody to manage the content, hopefully in the contract, it has in there that the company will make sure that the website's ADA compliant. If not, I suspect a county should contact their vendor and start negotiating this as part of the contract immediately. And I'm not sure how expensive it'll be, but definitely something that counties need to be aware of, and there could be a potential expense with this. Any idea of what it costs to put these new programs online to help with the ADA compliance?
We've seen costs vary. Again, the state, we've got in our contracts requirements to make sure you're accessible. And that's been in our boilerplate. Hopefully, I know I've heard anecdotally some counties have been doing that. And I would say just start working with your vendors to make sure they're enforcing. Again, WCAG 2.1 AA is your standards to meet. It's very clearly outlined what you need to do that. In terms of cost, I've seen low thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. I know we're working with state agencies today on their non-IN.gov hosted content, like their web applications, to kind of get a sense of where we're at. So we'll be providing that to our state agencies pretty soon.
Oh, good. Well, Graig, again, thanks for coming. Great information. Want to make sure counties are aware of this new standard And again, talk to your IT director, your IT provider, make sure they're in compliance, and hopefully this will not be an overly burdensome requirement on counties. So again, thanks everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Look forward to seeing you in the future.